Another spectacular episode as far as Gon and Killua and their training, their progression, and of course seeing and imagining where they're going to be very soon.
Hunter x Hunter, episode 64, Strengthen and Threaten.
Well, hello my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim here to bring you another review on the awesome and action-packed and Street Fighter-esque tale of Hunter x Hunter. Now, our last episode, of course, saw Gon and Killua really coming into their own and being trained by Bisky and really just kind of unlocking some of that potential that they have. The episode ended off with them learning how to actually go and shroud different objects in their aura with this surround ability, and then allowing them to actually be able to dig faster because they, of course, are digging straight through the mountains and hills and plateaus and what have you to get back to Macedora, all in part of their training. So that's where we left off, and that's right where things pick up as they've gone and they've gotten through the tunnels and what have you that they've gotten through, and they're like, oh, this is so good. I think we actually went 5 kilometers today. Now that they're working together and that they're working, of course, utilizing their newfound abilities. And then all of a sudden they wind up back at Macedora. And they're like, oh, thank goodness. And she's like, okay, now we're going to go back to the starting point again. And they're like, what? 70 kilometers away. The first portion of the episode is really all them and their training, and she winds up having them go after, the next day they actually have to go after and capture some of these various creatures, like the Bubble Horse and a couple others that they had seen, just, they wound up being introduced to a couple episodes ago, but they just could not defeat or catch them or what have you. The giant lizard they had to hide from, Killua now just takes it out, you know, and is able to turn it into a card. Monster cards, obviously, right? So very, very much like when you're grinding levels in an RPG and you stay in an area that there is monsters that you can defeat because you're trying to collect and get power-ups or those experience points that you need. So that's what it made me think of with that. Then when they get to the interesting part of at least what I thought was the interesting part of the episode, and this is where I think that Togashi must like Street Fighter, must have a love for Street Fighter, because out of the 3 new techniques that we learned, 2 of them, Ken and Ryu, are actually 2 techniques, or actually are 2 of the 2 main characters in Street Fighter. So I know I'm kind of showing my age, so to speak, because I used to play Street Fighter back in the arcades back in the day, but I know those are the 2 main characters. So anyway, we wind up finding out as she's training that there is different things that you can obviously use to enhance your abilities, and the first one is Ko. And Ko is where you're able to concentrate and use everything, your Hatsu, your Ren, your Ten, your Zetsu, whatever, all in one, and combine it together, and basically it concentrates the aura into one part of your body, your hand, your foot, your whatever. I mean, we could get into a lot of other things that are probably not G or even PG rated, but you get the idea. And she winds up then explaining that to go and defend against that, you actually have to use a form. It's actually called Ken, and it's actually your Ten and your Ren combined together. What you're doing is you're not just shrouding your entire body in aura, you're actually using kind of like this increased aura that's actually more powerful and more stronger as a defensive measure. However, it's something that's very difficult to maintain and to keep up. Gon, as a matter of fact, is only able to do it for a couple minutes, their first thing. Their first time using it, and as she goes to do this punch and says, okay, now go ahead and defend, and she's got this punch that she's using Ko on, right? She just starts going real slow, and Gon kind of hesitates and almost drops his defenses a little bit, but when she connects this tiny little punch, he flies like 10-20 meters away, right? And what this reminds me of is anybody who ever studied or watched any of the movies of, or watched a documentary on, or was a fan of the late Bruce Lee, he developed something called the 1-inch punch, and this guy, he actually, and you look it up to get the exact explanation of it, but the basic gist of it is that he could concentrate so much force and strength in one part of his body, in his fist, that he could actually come up to you and put his fist at 1 inch away from your chest or wherever, and create within that 1 inch of space enough force to hit you and literally throw you back and propel you, and even in some cases break ribs and do major damage, right? And it was unheard of. I mean, this guy invented his own martial art, but absolutely wonderful stuff. I know it's a side note, and I'm getting off on a bit of a tangent, but if you do have time and you don't know about Bruce Lee, look up some things, Google some things, watch a documentary too. Absolutely phenomenal, man, and it all ties into a lot of the stuff that they're using in here. Obviously fictional and a little bit more far-fetched, but many of the core principles of it. So, anyways, as they train and they learn how to use this more and more, then they wind up going and using Ryu, which is basically an advanced form of Gaio. And in this advanced form of Gaio, I like the way it was explained. What you're doing is, say you have 50, say it's a point system thing, again, like an RPG. My attack is 50, my defense is 50, right? But I want to go and I want to up my attack to 70, but I got to lower my defense down to 30 in this part of my body. And what you're doing is you're using this form to basically fight, to be on an offensive or defensive, depending on whether you need to attack or block, and you're able to go and strengthen or weaken, because you only have a certain amount of points, defense and offense points, or whatever you want to say. Look at it as like you only got 100 of them. You don't want to put all 100 into a punch, because then you're leaving yourself open if you wind up getting attacked or hit and you have nothing. So what it is it's shifting the balance of power between offensive, defense as needed. And I thought it was explained excellently. I really like the way that this has progressed and how we're learning more and more about this. And I have to agree with many of you when I say that in my limited reading and knowledge of manga and anime, this is the coolest, most logical explanation for the various powers that many people have that reside within this world. So I don't want to dwell too much on the training part, but I thought it was excellent. I thought it was just executed wonderfully. They're put through a series of different tests, and it's really cool because ever since they started training, she would say, every time I put my finger up, you guys both have to use Gaio and tell me what number it is that I'm, making appear invisible, but only visible if you use Gaio. And it's funny because in the first couple episodes they did this, whoever the loser was would have to do 1,000 or 3,000 push-ups, some insane amount of push-ups. And now you see in this episode that it's becoming second nature, and that's what training is all about in any type of martial art, is doing it so many times that you don't have to think, you just react. Okay, that's it. You just react. The punch comes towards you, react and block it. That's exactly what she's trying to do, is get that muscle memory down with them. So they're both tying all the time now whenever she goes and puts up and saying, the number at the same time. And so then they actually wind up doing a rock, paper, scissors for it, and Killua winds up losing. But the moral of the rock, paper, scissors is that supposedly the legend is that it was derived from martial arts, which were initially deemed, I guess, in this world back in the day as like these evil sort of things, the evil, dark type things, dark arts. And obviously, for obvious reasons, the scissors and the rock and the paper symbolize different moves that you do. Obviously, the paper is an open hand strike. The fist would obviously be your rock, and your scissors would be, I guess I'm assuming more of like a poking or pinching or like a pressure point type move. So very cool stuff, and that's what the whole first half or more of the episode is all about. And the most interesting parts of it come in their training, and this takes place over the course of like a month for this one stage, and then a couple of weeks for the next one. Then they're ready to move on to the final stage, which is basically learning how to make their abilities in their individual categories even stronger, right? So they start out with enhancer abilities, and basically they have to sit there and go and take a rock and go and smash 1,000 rocks in a day without smashing their rock. So they have to not only code it in aura and be able to concentrate on that, but they're using some of their nen, because at the point of impact they have to use that Ryu technique to go and put everything into that to be able to smash the other one. And they both wind up failing, technically, I guess, in the first day. But she says, no, you didn't fail. You're making progress. That's the point. You're training. You're learning how to use these abilities and how to hone these abilities. And that's what I took from it. So we wind up finding out then, too, in what I find so far to be the most uninteresting part of the game, the game, actually, in this story arc, is what's going on with this little boys club of America over here that are hanging out trying to get all the cards together so they can win the game. None of them are particularly likable or strong. That Pooh Hat guy with the big Jay Leno chin is with them. And really what winds up happening is they're all having a little meeting in their special secret hangout, which is a cave in the forest. And they're like, we got 90 out of the 100, actual slot cards that we need. We only need 10 more. We think that we can get them by doing this and that. However, Segura's group has the same amount too, but we feel we have better spell cards, so if we have to go up against them in a battle and everything else, and it's kind of setting the stage for like this battle royale between a bunch of people that seem to be physically weak, but obviously in the game it's the cards and the spells that do it for you. So we also wind up finding out that this one guy, and honestly, for the life of me, I forget his name, but he winds up revealing himself as the Bomber. He's this dude that wears this suit, and he has a taller, thinner guy, and has these glasses. And he reveals that he's the Bomber, right? And this is somebody that's always been plaguing them for a number of years, I guess, because he talks about how for the last 5 years they've been in the game and it seems like nothing. He reveals that he's placed a bomb on everybody, and that's his special ability with Nen, is the fire flower something on his hand, because one guy comes up, tries to grab him, he grabs the guy's face with his hand and basically blows up his face, disfiguring him and hurting him but not killing him. And really what it is the end result is the guy's just a scumbag fucking terrorist. He came in there, he went and he put bombs on everybody, gives them an hour or whatever I think it is on the countdown of it. They're all connected to their heartbeat, so if they get too excited, they'll blow up quicker. And the only way for them to disarm the bombs is if they give him all the cards, right? All their cards that they have. If they don't and they wind up dying, obviously nobody gets the cards. It's a catch-22 in that situation, because then their cards disappear and just kind of go back into the game, right? And then there's a way to disarm him too by actually touching him, and while you touch him and make contact with him saying, "I disarm the bomb," or some bullshit that makes no sense. Anyway, again, I didn't really think much of it because the characters have not been fleshed out at all. They're not very likable. Pooh Hat, out of all of them, is the one that got the most screen time so far. And then he winds up dying. The guy winds up using a leave card to go out of there and go back into the real world or what have you. And then all of a sudden you see him hanging out at this old, like, abandoned mansion that Batera used to own, I guess. And Pooh Hat appears and basically says, "Hey, listen, everybody's shook up, blah, 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 but I can negotiate with him, you know?" And the dude asks for his ring, for Pooh Hat's ring, you know, and he says no, he's not going to give it to him. And the guy goes and grabs Pooh Hat, chokes him out. Next thing you know, towards the end of the episode, we see a bunch of these characters in this motley crew, Little Boys Club of America, and they're basically threatened by, there's 3 bombers all together. There's the leader, and then there's 2 other shit fucks that wind up just hanging out with him and doing dastardly evil things in this game or whatever. And then they go and they bring Pooh Hat's head and roll it out of a bag and basically say, like, "This is what happens to you, you know, if you don't help us. So go gather us some leave cards," and, you know, just a bunch of stupid, underhanded terrorist bullshit. What I found interesting was the last, like, 10 seconds of the episode. If you remember in the last one, Shalnark said that he thought Greed Island wasn't even in a game, that it was actually just maybe a secluded portion somewhere in the actual world, right? So they obviously went and got out of the game and then got themselves a boat and are riding around in the boat, because you see like 6 or 7 of the Phantom Troop members, even Franklin, is on the boat at night. They're in the water, on the sea somewhere, and they think that they've approached Greed Island. That's what he says. "I think this is Greed Island." Because remember, they're trying to get at it from the outside or figure out where it is so they can go in and retrieve some of these items and take them out without actually having to complete the game. Again, the kind of scum fucks that don't want to actually complete something the way it's meant to be completed. They want to take the quickest route. They want to, you know, they want to pass this, they want to pass go, they want to collect $200, and they want all the property. You know what I mean? That's how it is. So, but I thought it was interesting and pretty cool to see and feel like, hey, this Greed Island actually is a part of the world. So that's how the episode leaves off. And again, for me, the strong point of it, of course, was the training and the progression of Gon and Killua. My chapter question or episode question for you, brothers and sisters, is what are your thoughts on the 3 new principles that we learned, obviously, in Ko, being able to concentrate everything into one particular area, fist or what have you, to maximize damage, and then, of course, the Ken, and then the Ryu as well. So what did you like about those 3? What didn't you like? And which was your favorite out of those 3 new techniques that we learned, obviously, and that they shared with us in this episode? Leave your answer to that question, or questions, in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We look forward to catching all of you in the next Fun Nation.
I would like you to subscribe to my other channels and follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.